It began with the sound of a plane nobody expected to survive. Sarajevo, winter 1992. A city starving, frozen, and forgotten. Families had stopped counting days without electricity. Children walked through snow in broken adult boots. No one expected a plane to bring hope. Then, one night, the sky roared again. But this time, it wasn't dropping bombs. Parachutes bloomed in the darkness. Dozens of them, drifting down past ruined buildings and cratered streets. Crates swung beneath them, massive and unmarked. By dawn, they'd landed in the UN-controlled sector, and half the neighborhood was already running toward them. Inside, medical supplies no government could explain. Blankets thick enough to survive winter without heat. Children's shoes in every size, and stamped on every crate. A symbol nobody in Bosnia had ever seen before. A small earth, cradled in hands. 3 words beneath, heal the world. Here's the part that nobody in Sarajevo expected. The man who'd moonwalked across the world's stages had just sent 46 tons of hope into the most dangerous sky in Europe. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the voice behind Thriller and Billie Jean. But how did he even know? And why did it take months before anyone realized it was him? Maria Kovac was a volunteer coordinator with AmeriCares. She'd been in Sarajevo for 9 months, watching the city slowly bleed out. She'd learned to measure time in bread lines and body bags. She'd learned to sleep through mortar fire. She'd learned not to hope too hard. When she pried open the first crate that morning, her hands were shaking. From cold, from hunger, from exhaustion that had become a permanent state. The supplies inside were pristine, American packaging, recent manufacturing dates. But there were no press releases, no cameras, no announcement from any government or celebrity foundation, just supplies appearing in the sky like a logistical miracle. The volunteers distributing the aid didn't know who funded it. The pilots who flew the mission had signed NDAs. Even AmeriCares, the organization that coordinated the flight, wasn't authorized to reveal the donor's name. Maria stared at that symbol. Heal the world. It looked personal, private, like someone's mission, not bureaucratic procedure, but whose. Nobody knew who could have funded such a flight. The scale made it impossible to ignore. 46 tons, 93,000 pounds, in a city where people burned furniture to stay warm and boiled grass for soup. Maria started asking questions. The AmeriCares field team knew the logistics. They'd provided the cargo plane, navigated war zone permissions, risked their pilots' lives through anti-aircraft corridors. But the funding? Above our clearance level, one coordinator whispered. All we know is someone paid for everything. Transportation, supplies, hazard bonuses for the crew, everything. And they want zero publicity. That didn't make sense. In 1992, humanitarian aid was a PR game. Governments issued statements. NGOs held press conferences. Celebrities posed with supply crates for magazine covers. This donor had spent what Maria estimated to be over $200,000 and demanded silence. The only clue was that symbol, Heal the World. She'd never heard of a foundation by that name. Over the next weeks, Maria became obsessed. She documented every crate, every label, every shipping mark. The antibiotics alone treated over 2,000 infections. The blankets kept families alive through January when temperatures dropped below 0. The children's shoes, there were so many shoes. Sizes for toddlers who'd been walking through rubble. Sizes for teenagers whose feet had grown during a siege. Every box, every bundle had that same symbol. That earth in hands. A single logo changed everything. Buried in the medical equipment crates, Maria found something different. Pharmaceutical boxes with a secondary stamp. A certification seal from a foundation registered in California. She copied the registration number. Weeks later, she sent an inquiry to Geneva. The response came back 3 days later. Heal the World Foundation. Registered 1988, Los Angeles. Founder, Michael J. Jackson. Maria read it twice, 3 times. Then she laughed, the kind of laugh that happens when reality cracks your expectations so completely. Michael Jackson, the Michael Jackson. The man who'd moonwalked in a sequined glove had just moonwalked 46 tons of medical supplies past Serbian artillery batteries. This was the piece that haunted Maria. How did he even know what Sarajevo needed? The supplies weren't generic disaster relief. They were precisely curated. Insulin for diabetic patients, shoes sized for growing children, antibiotics for specific infections. Someone had been watching, reporting, planning. Maria contacted a Red Cross liaison who'd worked with the foundation in Ethiopia. The woman's answer was simple. They have field scouts, people who report what's actually needed, not what governments say is needed. And Jackson reads every single report. The call that came from Los Angeles proved it. February 1993. The siege was grinding into its 10th month. Maria was sorting insulin vials. The shipment had included insulin, which meant someone knew about the diabetic patients trapped in the basement clinic. When her satellite phone crackled, satellite minutes cost more than food. Nobody called unless it was life or death. Maria Kovac, American accent, professional. This is Robert Gualtieri, AmeriCare's Connecticut office. We need to discuss the December shipment. She waited. Words were expensive in Sarajevo. The donor has asked us to verify the supplies reached intended recipients. Normally, we handle this internally, but... A pause. They want a direct report from you. Why me? Because you've been documenting everything. The donor specifically requested your field notes. Maria's hand tightened on the phone. Who is the donor? Officially. Another pause, longer. His foundation is called Heal the World. You've probably heard his music. I know who he is. What I don't understand is how he knew what to send. The supplies were too specific. Someone fed him real-time intelligence from inside the siege. Robert's voice dropped. There was a journalist, American. She embedded in Sarajevo in October 1992, freelancing for wire services. She sent weekly dispatches to multiple outlets, including one to an address in California that wasn't a news agency. Maria's breath caught. She was reporting to Jackson? We're not authorized to confirm that, but the December shipment arrived 6 weeks after her first dispatch, and every item she mentioned as critically needed was in those crates. The line went dead. The signature matched his foundation's files. Maria finally got the proof in March 1993. A faxed document arrived at the AmeriCare's field office, a copy of the original shipping authorization. At the bottom, a handwritten note, expedite. All costs covered. Time sensitive due to ongoing winter conditions and civilian medical crisis. Prioritize pediatric supplies and cold weather gear. Please coordinate safe passage with UNHCR. The signature was unmistakable, the same autograph that appeared on millions of album covers. But here's what made Maria's hands shake. The date, November 28, 1992, 2 weeks before the shipment arrived, which meant Jackson had cut through bureaucratic delays, arranged cargo transport through a war zone, and funded the entire operation in 14 days. Most humanitarian responses took months of committee meetings and budget approvals. He'd done it in 2 weeks. There was a boy who pressed his face against a frozen window that night. His name was Amir. He was 9 years old. His mother had divided one potato between 3 children earlier and called it dinner. She hadn't eaten her portion, just watched them with eyes that had stopped disguising the truth. When the cargo plane rumbled overhead, she pulled him back from the glass. Not with words had become too expensive, but with a hand on his shoulder that said, stay alive, stay hidden, stay silent. The next morning, volunteers brought red sneakers to his building. They fit perfectly, the first new shoes he'd owned in 2 years. He tried to walk carefully, avoiding the worst rubble, because they were too clean for Sarajevo streets. 3 weeks later, he found something in a donated coat pocket, a cassette tape, slightly worn. The label read, dangerous. Amir didn't have a cassette player. Electricity was rationed in minutes, but his friend's uncle had a battery-powered radio that could play tapes if you were patient with the broken play button. 7 children gathered in a basement, 2 candles, 1 cassette player held together with wire and hope. When Heal the World started playing, the song with the same name as the symbol on the crates, Amir understood something that adults had forgotten. Kindness doesn't always arrive with explanations. Sometimes it just arrives. Here's what Maria pieced together over the following months. Michael Jackson's Heal the World Foundation had been operating since 1988. 4 years of quiet interventions, hospitals in Budapest, orphanages in Romania, feeding programs in Somalia, no press releases, no photo ops, just action. The Sarajevo airlift was one mission among many, but it was perfectly timed. Winter 1992, when the siege was tightening and the world was starting to look away from another Balkan conflict that seemed too complicated to solve. Why the secrecy? Maria found a clue in an archived interview Jackson had given in 1991, before Sarajevo, before the siege, before anyone knew Bosnia would become synonymous with suffering. A reporter had asked him about his foundation's refusal to publicize its work. His answer: when you help because you want people to see you helping, you're not helping them. You're helping yourself. I don't need credit. I need kids to live. How did Michael Jackson know about Sarajevo? Because he paid attention when the world looked away. Because he funded field scouts who reported real needs, not political talking points. Because when a journalist's dispatch mentioned children walking through snow in broken boots, he didn't form a committee. He sent 46 tons by air. Why did he keep it secret? Because fame was his job. Saving lives was his purpose. And he understood the difference. When did people finally learn the truth? Slowly, in pieces, through shipping manifests and satellite phone calls and fax signatures, through Maria's obsessive documentation and a Red Cross liaison's memory of a hospital tent in Ethiopia, through the simple fact that Heal the World wasn't just a song, it was a foundation, a promise, a cargo plane flying through anti-aircraft fire. Amir is 41 now. He kept those red sneakers. They're too small, worn to memory, but they sit on a shelf in his Sarajevo apartment. His daughter asks why he saves old shoes. He tells her about the winter when hope fell from the sky, about a cargo plane that sounded different from the ones dropping bombs, about a cassette tape that taught him music could be more than sound. It could be proof that someone, somewhere, remembered you existed. And sometimes, when he plays Heal the World for his daughter, he tells her the truth that took Maria months to uncover. The man who moonwalked for millions chose to walk silently for thousands. No spotlight, no stage. Just 46 tons of proof that the greatest performances happen when no one's watching. War took everything. One man, who the world knew for his voice, answered with action. And maybe that's the real moonwalk. The one nobody saw, the one that didn't need an audience to matter. Would you have done the same if no one was watching?